Hello and welcome to RMP Insight Sessions. I'm Ollie Sidwell, co-founder of RMP. Now this series is designed to give you all the trends, recommendations and all the goings on in the early careers world. The first one we did a few months ago was all around Don't Disappear, which was talking about engagement throughout the whole year, an always on approach, which the lady on my right always talks about. Today is a little bit different. We are mid National Apprenticeship Week. So guess what we're going to be talking about today?
National Apprenticeship Week.
National Apprenticeship Week. So this is going to be all about that. And with me, I have Emma Miles Walton, client partner and B2B Marketing Lead. And alongside her for her first appearance on the Insight Sessions is Tatiana Middleton, and she is the RMP Marketing Manager. Hello both, how are we?
Hello, very good, thank you. How are you?
All good, thanks, all good.
Yeah, all good.
You ready?
Side as well. I'm excited for my first session.
Rock?
Very excited.
So today you've both been very busy doing a webinar. So you've been touching on everything from an apprenticeship side. You've shared a number of trends to illuminate the world around National Apprenticeship Week, to keep this wonderful noise and momentum all around apprenticeships, which is incredible. Tell us a little bit about why you've been doing that.
So it's National Apprenticeship Week, and I think a lot of people know us mostly for Rate My Placement, but during this week we thought it was time to give Rate My Apprenticeship a bit of the spotlight, pass the mic over to Rate My Apprenticeship. So yes, we focused all about kind of the latest trends in the apprenticeship market. We dug into a ton of research, and I think the main message from today was apprenticeships are on the up, interest is soaring, everybody's talking about them, but there's still so many challenges, and there's so many things that people don't know yet. There's a bit of like a disparity in some ways. So we were just bringing some trends to life, focusing the attention on apprenticeships just like they deserve, and sharing those insights with our employer partners.
Love it. So Rate My Apprenticeship, for those that don't know, provides reviews, jobs and advice to help all young people consider all their future career options. Now that platform is something we're really passionate about, and there's so many trends that you shared today that we won't be able to share today in this little session. So we're going to touch on the best ones, the ones that you found most interesting, and the stories that we're going to find most useful to share with you all. Now, Emma, one of your first ones was around the boom in apprenticeships. So tell us a bit more about what we're seeing in that area.
So yeah, I think apprenticeships are on the up in general, like everyone's talking about them more, there's more opportunities, and we're seeing a few different things. So we noticed that 40% of students that previously thought about being an undergraduate and going to university are now considering an apprenticeship, which is awesome. More people are reading things like blog articles, advice. It was 80% our traffic increased to blogs and advice on Rate My Apprenticeship. So everyone's really doing their research, really want to learn more about apprenticeships. Another interesting thing that we saw, which we've never seen like in the past decade of running Rate My Apprenticeship, was a huge spike in people researching, looking on the website on GCSE results day. So that's an interesting one, because I think it's showing us that it's not just apprenticeships on the up in general, but for the younger year groups, the kind of post-16 apprenticeships, post kind of GCSE results day is when they're really active and really proactively looking at things. So that was super interesting. And we also had kind of Nathan from BAE Systems talking about how, from his experience, their kind of apprenticeship offering has just increased so much. I think he said that it's doubled over the past 2 years. Don't quote me, Nathan.
It was double in the last 3 years.
Double in the last 3 years.
Yeah, that's huge though.
Yeah, so we are seeing, you know, the interest is there from the people that are exploring apprenticeships, but also from an employer's side, they're really upping the ante. They're like, okay, we need to actually get more apprenticeships into the business. So all in all, it's good news for apprenticeships during National Apprenticeship Week, which is what we like.
Yeah, I agree. And also on the panel there was Janet, who's at Disney, who found her apprenticeship through Rate My Apprenticeship, which is amazing as a journey. But I think one thing she was finding is just the requirement to get more and more awareness out into schools and colleges, even though this is all happening. And I think that links with one of the new products we're just about to launch.
Yes, apprenticeship ambassadors, so excited for this one. I feel like we've been talking about it forever. So obviously we recruit loads of brand ambassadors in the university space, like over 1,000 every year. But that kind of increased need, like Janet was mentioning, for education, like awareness in schools? How do you actually get out to people? The apprenticeship ambassadors, we feel, are kind of meeting that gap. So we've recruited over 70 already, and their role is essentially to kind of be that apprenticeship advocate, is what I'm liking to call them, within their schools and colleges, but also on their social media networks. And that came up about 10 million times on the webinar this morning, how important social media is. They're probably better at it than we all are. So they're going to be out there doing a brilliant job on social media, promoting employers. And we just want to replicate the success and the impact that we see in the university space. But again, passing the mic to apprenticeships.
Yeah, I feel like everything we've ever done has been peer-to-peer, whether it's reviews on Rate My Placement, Rate My Apprenticeship, brand ambassadors talking to other students. It's a real unique part of what we really believe in, is that students and young people hear it better from other students and they trust it. It's a much more understood message and they appreciate it more. So this is one thing I'm really super excited about. And you touched on the social element of almost them being better at it than everyone else. Like, how are you seeing that trend change as well, and how do we adapt to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I say better than everyone else, better than me, whether they're better than everyone else, I don't know. I think they are just on social all the time. I think we're seeing more and more of a trend of, I think there was I can't remember who did this research, but someone said like TikTok is the new Google. And that's where Gen Z especially are finding information. You know, it's not as easy for an employer now to just kind of rely on like a Google ad or like a Google search. I think you really do have to be where this new generation of talent are, which is on social media. So we were talking a lot about how do you navigate that? Where do you start? What kind of content is going down well? And the best type of content really that we're seeing land the best from our experience on Rate My Apprenticeship social media pages as well is things like user-generated content, content days, day in the life of videos, office tours, like where they can get an actual insight to what it's like to work for you. And in your companies is definitely like the way forward.
Yeah, they look really good, don't they? When you get to see them walking around the office, seeing what they're doing, it just brings it all to life. And for me, it's that there's some scary brands out there. You may not think you're scary, but to a young person, it can be quite imposing, thinking this multinational brand that I want to try and apply for, and how do I fit in? Actually, to break it down and have someone actually talk you through it and what it's like to work in those offices.
Yeah. Absolutely, and you've got to remember as well, like for so many of these people coming into the businesses for the first time, it's their first ever job. So it's like, how do you actually picture that? Like if you've never done work experience before, like having actual insight into that via social media is so powerful. And it's just as important that they can opt out as well as opt in, right? They can look at things and think, you know what, maybe that's not for me. Or they can look at things and say, I can actually see myself there. And that's important for like longevity and actually committing to apply to something and staying when you actually arrive as well.
Yeah, and not dropping out, which is something we won't touch on now, but we did touch on in the webinar. Tats, I want to come to you now because you shared some really good research around salaries, and we often get asked around salaries. You know, what is the average salary? How does it fit? How's it changing? So talk us through what you're seeing from all the review feedback, right?
Absolutely. So we obviously collect a lot of this data through our reviews. If you were going to ask me the individual average salaries of each one of the levels, I probably wouldn't be able to answer it right now, but I could earlier. So generally we are seeing a positive trend. Salaries have gone up. It's about a 7% increase to what we saw last year when we compare the reviews from last year with the salaries to this year. So that's varying across the different levels. But overall, nice positive trend, which is brilliant because students are generally thinking a lot more about salary now. And that is something that we obviously touched upon, you know, in the webinar.
It was quite high, wasn't it? It was higher than I thought it would be in terms of a motivator for them to apply. Absolutely.
I think some of the research that we've seen, you know, in our own data and research that we've seen across the market, you know, IC has had some really interesting stats around, you know, I think it was the second most common reason for early hires leaving a company, dissatisfaction with pay. And that's really interesting to see, you know, how important it's really becoming. And we've seen that in our own annual insight survey, you know, I think it was 30%, 33%.
Yeah, as a leading factor on whether they would apply or not.
Exactly. What they were thinking about was the main driving factor was salary. And it's been seen in the reviews as well. We've had comments in reviews, you know, salary was either really competitive, it was great, you know, I felt that, you know, my time was valued, or on the other side of the coin, you know, not feeling quite like they were getting as much, you know, compensation as they were really looking for, or struggling just generally with day-to-day costs. 38% not being able to, you know, struggling with that, with their travel costs. It's quite a high stat there. So definitely it's something that's really on their mind, but it is great to see overall that the trend is on the up, that the salary is going up. And also really interesting that the minimum hourly wage is going up, because I didn't know that. Did you both know that?
No, you taught me today. So thank you.
Good addition. Yeah.
So pleased to hear that. Well, I think it's a 21% increase that's going to be in April this year. 21% increase in the hourly wage for apprentices. So that'll be really interesting. That's hopefully going to bring some more positive change, some more increased salaries.
Yeah, and we have all this data to share, so we can obviously go through each level, or just overall, we can share that for benchmarking purposes.
Absolutely. For any of you that get asked a lot about salaries, we can help you out there.
Two other things that you spoke about specifically, the final one was around hybrid working, so we'll come back to that in a sec, but social mobility was one you highlighted as an area. There was quite a discrepancy between the demand from young people from low socioeconomic backgrounds and actually the supply and interest from employers wanting to reach out and engage that audience. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting trend that we're seeing, that, you know, very much the students from disadvantaged backgrounds, even though they're actually more interested in doing an apprenticeship than those from wealthier backgrounds, you know, this is actually being reflected on the other side of the coin in actual hires. So trying to think about, you know, what is it that is, you know, clearly creating so much interest there, and why is that not translating into actual hires in the end? Is, I think, a lot of that, and what we touched upon as well in the webinars, a lot of it is just generally a lack of education. You know, this came up a lot in the webinar, just it's a lack of support maybe from those from more disadvantaged areas as well. It might be that in their schools they're not getting quite as much careers advice, they might not be getting as much application support, and that's just making it a lot more difficult for them to actually secure the apprenticeship in the end. So really, for, you know, employers looking to target more disadvantaged students, you know, there's definitely some things that they could maybe be doing to try and reach out to those areas. We obviously talked about Access Accountancy, who did a really amazing campaign that we worked with them on, and you know, to try and reach sort of students from more disadvantaged areas, in particular to try and increase the awareness in
the whole industry.
In the whole industry, really.
The whole industry of accountancy, yeah.
Trying to increase the awareness in the whole industry across, you know, all different sort of backgrounds. And that was an amazing campaign. So there's definitely more that employees could be doing. It's just, you know, if it's all around sort of lack of education as well, you know, that's a wider issue. That's a much wider issue. It's, you know, can employers maybe be working with schools a little bit more to provide, you know, more careers advice, especially in schools maybe that are from more disadvantaged areas. There's definitely a lot around that, and, you know, it's definitely sort of something that can be kind of improved, hopefully, over time.
I think Nathan from BAE Systems made a really good point on the social mobility side of things, because he was saying how, you know, there's still an assumption that an apprenticeship is like a blue-collar role or like a trade role or a hands-on role, and there's a lack of awareness of like the higher levels and how you can actually get a degree from doing an apprenticeship. And I wonder if maybe that's got something to do with the lack of students from a lower socioeconomic background getting into those higher levels, even though the interest is there. So yeah, I think you're right.
Absolutely.
More awareness and education needed.
Definitely, and I think especially, you know, over the kind of years, exactly as you said, that education is starting to change, you know, but they were very much always connected with trade industries, and that perception amongst, you know, parents particularly also has very much not changed. So if they're not getting kind of more education on that, then that is probably what the perception is, and they probably think about it, you know, doing it maybe more sort of a level 2 or level 3, and they're not as aware of the kind of newer opportunities going in the higher levels. So yes, I think definitely.
Well, thank you. Like Katie from Career Compass also spoke about this, just the real importance of just that education. I feel like we do quite a lot of that, like with the Parents Hub, which is new, and engaging them. There's the coffee mornings for a lot of school and careers folk. Like, share more about those, because I think we're trying to do as much as we can there. We've got to reach as far and wide as we possibly can, but I think there's some good stuff that you're doing that actually addresses that issue.
Absolutely, and we do a lot of different things, which is really, really important. I think, one of the main goals for Rate My Apprenticeship is being that sort of, advice hub, the being able to guide students along their journey, provide that education as best that we can. And, working with schools is a huge, huge part of that. Trying to educate parents, of course, is a huge part of that. So you mentioned the Parents Hub there. That is something that we launched just over this last year. And that was a way to provide resources specifically to parents. They are actually, one of the biggest influencers for apprentices, thinking about doing or students thinking about doing an apprenticeship. Their parents are actually one of the biggest influencers. That's also been shown in research as well. So educating parents, giving them that understanding of what is available is so important. So we did launch the Parents Hub, and that's definitely something that we encourage schools to share with parents as well, with all of the resources that we have available for them through the website. In terms of the way we work with schools, there's lots and lots of different things that we do. We understand also for businesses it's really hard to reach out to specific schools, and that's always going to be a challenge with there being over 6,000 of them across the UK. But we do try, to access as many as we can through either doing webinars, such as this one that we did earlier, for our, big sort of community of careers advisors and teachers. We also have a website dedicated to schools and careers advisors to access resources for their students. So that's another way that we really educate students, through our kind of connections with schools. We deliver a lot of presentations, share a ton of job opportunities and resources and everything. So there's lots and lots of different things that we try to do to help on that education side.
Yeah.
I see us as the little facilitators.
The little facilitators.
Not the little, I see us as the facilitators.
Yeah, I like it.
It's so hard to go to every single school and college. It's hard even for us. But I feel like if we're able to do that, then we can almost facilitate conversations for employers, right? Because the more people that know about the work we're doing, the more students that are reading the resources we're producing, then hopefully the more awareness about the employers we work with too comes from that. So yeah, it's super important work, and it's ongoing work, right?
Absolutely.
It's always growing.
Yeah.
Always growing, but we're doing it even better and better and better all the time. So.
Well, Tats, you do a fab job of that, so thank you. The final trend was around hybrid working, and we got some really funny stuff back from students when they sort of started sharing this information, didn't they? Tell us a bit more about their feedback around hybrid working and just how against it they would be of going back full time.
I know, it was quite fun, really.
It's quite brutal, wasn't it?
It was quite brutal reading some of the reviews. Generally in the reviews, which is just that how much students really want flexible working. And it definitely makes sense. This flexible work is probably all they've really known since maybe going into their apprenticeship, if it's, in the last sort of few years since the pandemic. But it was really interesting seeing in the reviews there was a lot of mention of being quite frustrated if the policy had changed. There's a lot of, students not wanting to kind of go back to full-time working. And it is just part, I think, of that broader sort of trend of Gen Z just wanting work-life balance. We're really seeing in the reviews, it really stood out how much they talked about those flexible working policies being able to provide them with better work-life balance. It's helping them with their travel costs. It's just something that they are now expecting from their employers to have that opportunity. And I think what was really, significant reading the reviews and also just looking at sort of the data as well is how little job ads actually reference hybrid working policies. Clearly, it's something that Gen Z really want, and they sort of almost some of them really need, and yet it's not actually always being translated in job descriptions. So, I think the data really came back that it was less than a third. I think it was 31% only of job ads on Rate My Apprenticeship in the past year were actually referencing hybrid working or flexible working in their job descriptions. So, this is definitely an opportunity for employers to, be able to include this a little bit more. It's hopefully going to be a really great attraction tool for them to be able to tell students, what is it like working there? Is it going to be in the office? Is it going to be at home? So it's an important thing to mention, I think. So that was quite a good standout thing that came out from the data.
Yeah, so almost lead with that. It's really important to young people, so make that really clear from the off. So yeah, all right, well, we've covered so many different topics there, and I feel like there's so many more things that came up and so many interesting insights that came from the discussion earlier. So you've got a few trends here and you've got plenty more in the webinar. Should we do a little wrap up? Yeah?
Let's go for
Yeah.
it.
So I think it's there's a huge boom in apprenticeships. This is wonderful. There's a lot more interest. Young people are really passionate about them. Consider some real key times of the year, because there's going to be GCSE results day, there's A-level results day. What are you doing? What are you thinking about during those peak areas to try and jump on and show your support during those key elements, not telements. I'd also say investing in social. It's difficult to do on your own, so using young people to do that. The peer-to-peer element we know works really well. It comes across so authentic, and using the likes of day in the life ofs, walk around offices, office tours, these things that are led by the actual apprentices come across so brilliantly. We can absolutely help support with that kind of content and do interviews with them as well if you're looking for those sorts of things. There's loads of salary benchmarking that we can share with you across all the different levels, and alongside that, considering all the socio-economic difficulties, and as Tats, you spoke about, like, how do we reach out to an audience that are really wanting to find out about apprenticeships that don't necessarily have the education alongside that to help them upskill themselves or train themselves or develop new skills that are required to get through those different processes. So the message there to employers is to go out to these schools, support young people, develop them, help them with assessments and interview tips, and that's how you'll get a groundswell of interest from target demographics that you're looking to reach out to. We heard a lot in the webinar about tech roles being really important and quite on trend, which we haven't touched on, but we did touch on the hybrid working and just how vital that is to young people, how almost accepted it is to them. Expected, not accepted. They really expect it to be hybrid. They want to do, was it 1 to 2 days a week? And yeah, going full time in the office certainly turned a lot of them off in the reviews. So yeah, one to be aware of. I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, and I really do feel like the apprenticeship ambassadors are going to tie all of that together. You know, they're going to be helping out with that social media content. They're going to be helping out with outreach in schools. And it's peer-to-peer. You know, you trust that kind of authentic user-generated content so much more. So I do think they're going to really support the growth and the education around apprenticeships in general. I think another thing that we probably didn't touch too much upon is just how, you know, when do you go live for applications? Every employer does it differently. We're in National Apprenticeship Week right now, and Nathan from BAE Systems said they get like an absolute spike, was in like midnight on the last day of National Apprenticeship Week. But I think with how much future apprentices need that education, that research, that support, I think employers need to think a little bit differently about it just being, you know, just focus everything on National Apprenticeship Week, or just focus on when our applications are open, and think about it more as what can we be doing to support, educate, inform, upskill, as well as driving applications to their roles. I think there's a bigger project when it comes to apprenticeships than there might be in the grad space. In the grad space, you might get away with just having like a shorter window. In the apprenticeship space, not so much.
Anything from you, Tats? I feel like it's a great summary.
Absolutely, I think that's a brilliant summary. Not much more to add, I don't think. Just, I guess, what an exciting time. That's all I can finish with.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Love it.
This time next year, we'll be like, apprenticeships have taken over everything. No one wants to do it.
Great, we'll be ready for it.
We are ready. Well, thank you all for joining. I hope you enjoyed that. Pop a like on if you enjoyed it. Do follow us and come back in the future. So thank you again. I've been Ollie.
I've been Emma.
And I've been Tatiana.
And we'll see you all very soon. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.